Hello, good evening, and welcome to Stone Monkey Radio. Regard the cards. Honestly, we've been here a while. We've been here a while. We've been here a while. We've got all the way up to C, but there was a problem with the audio. So if you're watching the VOD, you're getting it from here, and you're missing out on all of the good Kel stuff. And apparently, Kel's too loud now because that was me fucking about with the audio earlier.
I think that might have just been me kind of screaming into my phone, desperate to be heard.
Hello.
Let me know how the audio is now.
We're here now. It's all fine. Cyclops Tyrant.
Cyclops Tyrant.
Who's the Cyclops? Who's the good Cyclops friend?
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm about level with Jane. I mean, I kind of aim to be on your level, but whatever.
Get on my level.
So, the Cyclops Tyrant from a core set. Alright, that's looking almost good. Gotta love this minutia.
Right.
Intimidate.
It can't be blocked except by artifact creatures and or creatures that share a color with it.
Yes, Intimidate is something that has been experimented with and been kind of tweaked over time. In its earliest iteration, it was simply called Fear, and it was only on black creatures. And had the text, this creature can't be blocked except by artifact or black creatures.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of its own unique way of being of evasion in black, which there hasn't been much of. But Intimidate was kind of how it was generalized. I can't remember when the generalization took place or when Intimidate started replacing Fear. But I know back up until 2004, 2005, Fear was the only version of it. It's interesting.
I cannot make that card look any better. Thanks, Contrast.
Woo!
Defiant Ogre.
Ogre. I think you need to try turning the brightness up, generally speaking.
Yeah. I'm trying to do it without everything going. That's a bit better.
That's a bit better.
Hopefully that will do.
Mm-hmm.
This episode has been a technical nightmare. Yay!
Mm.
It's a 3/5 for 6. When it enters the battlefield, you can put a +1/+1 counter on it or destroy target artifact.
Gotta love having that variety.
It's nice to have.
Yeah. 6 mana 4/6 or 6 mana 3/5 that destroys an artifact. Kind of shit, but also
artifacts. Although Embercleave, I guess. Embercleave.
Yes.
Got a couple of those. I've got Dragons, Twins. Dragon Stars wins.
This is. Yeah, the Twins are definitely still played in a few formats. Yeah, they're good. It's a good card.
Bit of prowess. Could have been heroic, but maybe that would have just been OP.
No, yeah, prowess is. Yeah.
What if just a little heroic as a treat?
Hi, Nick. Hi, Poltergeist of Twitch.
How we doing? Oh, heck. Post goes. Apparently that's not old. Well, shit.
Well, shit. Sounds like it would be bad shit. Get that shit away from the well.
It's just Welsh shit. Dragon Tyrant. How's that? Is that old enough for you?
Oh, yes. It is a very good classic card.
It's flying and trample and double strike, and it's got fucking upkeep. Up the wazoo.
I mean, if you've paid 12 to get it in, you can afford to pay 4 at the start of your upkeep.
Yeah, I guess. Hi, Poltergeist of Twitch. How haunted that Twitch be?
I
That's a
started
shiny card.
playing in Magic set Mirrodin.
Hmm.
So there. If we're all sharing how old a player we are. Okay. Um,
Ball control.
I convinced. So I'm visiting my cousin in Oregon right now,
Hmm.
and I convinced him to dig out his old Magic cards because he started playing back in like revised edition when the game first came out. We found a couple cards worth like $100, $200 in his among his collection,
Shiny.
which is good because he and his wife have baby on the way, and that will go towards much of baby food.
Nice. Many baby
Mm-hmm.
foods. Drop
Mm-hmm.
control. It's 4-2 for 3. Doesn't untap when
Classic.
it's untap step. But it does whenever
Mm-hmm.
you play an on-red spell.
Mm-hmm.
So, not for monocolored decks for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Earthshaker. It's a 4-5 for 6, and whenever you play a spirit or arcane spell, Earthshaker deals 2 damage to each creature without flying.
Need to be careful with this one because it also hurts itself as part of that.
It hurt itself in its confusion.
Ooh, did you get anything good in your Theros box, Poltergeist? I'd love to hear what you've got.
I got an Ashiok Nightmare Muse, and it's made me very happy.
I am so excited for you. I really hope to pull one of those one of these days.
One day. I'm still very happy about like that first pre-release box, and we
Yes.
got the Nyx Lotus,
Mm-hmm.
shiny Nyx Lotus.
Nyx Lotus is all right.
I want to put a Nyx Lotus decks together, but I need
Hmm.
4 of them. They're
But you,
expensive.
they are. I still have a few copies of Nykthos Shrine to Nyx, the card that Nyx Lotus is based on, from the original Theros block.
Mm-hmm.
I just happened to get like 2 of them when I got my 1 Theros Fat Pack.
Nice.
Yes.
Wait,
Okay.
how many Nyx lands do you get in a Theros Fat Pack?
Oh, I mean, uh, in the Beyond Death one, you get the standard amount of lands, and I think they're all the full art ones. I can't remember. I haven't actually gotten my bundle for Theros Beyond Death yet. I hope to.
One day. Emberfist Zubara. It's a 1-2 for 2. When it's put into the graveyard from play, it deals damage to target creature or player equal to the number of Zubera put into all graveyards from play this turn. I guess
Yes.
there's a whole tribe of them.
The Zubera have like a handful of cards in the Kamigawa block. They're all in different colors, which is like kind of weird, and as a tribe that just didn't really make sense in that block.
It
So
kind of
kind
reminds
of
me of a Silent
unfortunate.
Hill creature.
Yeah, yeah.
5 feet elemental. It's
Mm-hmm.
3-2 for 4. It's got haste and renown.
Yes.
The renowned fiend. That's alright.
So I guess that's just something you play when your opponent's defenses are down and it becomes a 4-3 for 4, which I guess is not terrible.
Yeah, I guess. Fire Fist Striker with Battalion.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever it and at least 2 other creatures attack, target creature can't block this turn. Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Take that, you big
Yes.
bastards.
They actually reused that mechanic a little bit in the recent, in a few recent sets. It's been kind of nice seeing that homage.
Homage.
Mm-hmm.
As Flamer Shrider, whenever Flamer Shrider attacks, put a token onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. That's a copy of another target attacking creature. Exile that token at the end of combat. And it's got Dash. Another one I've not
What the?
seen much in all of this looking through.
I have never seen Dash before. That looks very powerful, though.
That's a spell for its dash cost. If you do, it gains haste and is returned from the battlefield to its own hand at the beginning of the end step. Fucking hell.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Very
As long
nice.
as you've got the mana, just keep thrashing it out, right?
Mm-hmm. And it's cheaper than just playing the creature as well. And
Mm-hmm.
it's safe when it's in your hand. Safer anyways.
Flesh Pulper Giant. In the
Mm-hmm.
battlefield, you may destroy a target creature with toughness 2 or less.
Squeeze.
4 for 6. 4 for 6.
Yes.
Alright though.
That's for 7 though.
Oh yes, rude.
I mean, when you compare it to Meteor Golem now, which is a 7 mana 3/3 that destroys anything, yeah.
Flame Wake Phoenix. It's a phoenix.
Oh, that is such a good card.
Flying, haste, nice.
Mm-hmm.
It attacks each turn if able. Yeah, dangerous. At the beginning of combat, on your turn, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, you may pay 1 red. If you do, return it from your graveyard to battlefield. Whoa, fucking hell.
Yes. So essentially, a way that this kind of worked was people would just mill a lot of cards until they got 1 or 2 of these phoenixes in their graveyard. And then they would just aim to have a 4-power creature on the field at some point, and then just get like 2, 3, sometimes even 4 of these phoenixes out all at once, and just overwhelm them with 2/2 flyers that always come back.
Take that, you white bastards.
Mm-hmm.
Forgeborn Oreads. Oreads?
Yeah, Oriats. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because we've got Oread of Mountains something from Theros.
Oriad was on a crossword puzzle that I did yesterday, completely
Spicy.
randomly. Mm-hmm.
Look at you managing words. I can't do crosswords. I don't have the brain for it.
I love crosswords, but only when I do them in paper. I just can't do them on phones or online.
It is not the friend of the dyslexic.
No, it is not. Anywho.
It's a 4/2 for 4 with Constellation. Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever or another chartman enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to target creature or player. Nice.
That's
That's a good
nice
art.
if you can get like 2, 3, 4 procs on a single turn.
I feel like
You can
old
do quite a
Theros
bit
and
of
new
damage.
Theros could blend really well together, like the
They do.
Outlook
That's
Arena,
part of the design.
but you can't play them in standard.
No, you can play them together in Pioneer though.
Try on your 5 Foundry Street Denison. Love the artwork here.
Yes, I have a ton of these guys.
Whenever another red creature enters the battlefield, under your control, it gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Not bad for a
Mm-hmm.
1/1.
Not bad at all.
Frantic Raptor. Beast can't block.
Mm-hmm. So that's kind of your finisher in the Legion's Beast deck in the red-green colors.
Yet more beautiful red art.
Right?
Gluttonous Cyclops.
Ah, yes.
Monstrosity.
Gotta love the monstrosity.
If this creature isn't monstrous, you can make it monstrous for 7.
Mm-hmm. There were a lot of payoffs for making things monstrous, and there were a lot of ways to make monstrous cheaper in this block.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've got any of those.
It's the same sort of mechanic as Adapt on the Simic cards from the Ravnica Legions block.
Goblin Clearcutter. Sacrifice the forest, add 3 mana on any combination of red and or green to your mana pool.
That is really nice. I'll bet you that's used in some sort of insane combo deck in some format.
I would imagine so, yeah, really get things lifting off pretty quickly. More beautiful artwork. It's the Goblin Grappler. It's got Provoke. Target defending player untaps target and block if able. That,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you pump it, that could get really nasty.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you could give it death touch somehow.
Yes.
Goblin Heel Cutter. Whenever it attacks, creature can't block this turn. Target creature can't block this turn. And you can dash it.
Mm-hmm.
Dash, dash, dash.
Mm-hmm.
See, you
Dash it
haven't seen
all.
dash, and here it comes. Again.
Mm-hmm. Ba-da-da. I'm sure we'll see it more in black and white as well, because those are the Mardu colors, and it seems to be the Mardu mechanic.
It seems to be. Goblin Lookout.
Mm-hmm.
Again. Beautiful, beautiful art.
Absolutely.
Sacrifice a goblin. All goblins get +2/+0 till end of turn.
That's quite good.
Who is Fat? Poor Fat.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Goblin Machinist. Fuck this card and everything it stands for. I have been in the face of this card many times.
Oh, yes?
So it's a 0/5 for 4. For 3, you can reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a non-land card. Goblin Machinist gets +X/+0 till end of turn, where X is the CMC. That's card CMC. Put the reveal cards on the bottom of your library in any order. So you've got even milling.
That sounds nice, actually.
Couple of those.
Mm-hmm.
Back to Origins. Goblin Pile Driver. Protection from blue.
Hot.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there.
Exactly.
I'm glad they're having a wonderful time, and I hope that everyone is consenting to this.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Okay. That's a
Looks like a fun little card.
Goblin Psychopath.
Mm.
Whenever it attacks or blocks, flip a coin. If you lose the flip, then next time it would deal combat damage. This turn, it deals that damage to you instead. I mean, it's
Yikes,
a
that's
cheap 5/5, but...
But 5/5 that half the time won't even hurt the creature it's blocking, or the creature that blocked it, or the opponent you attacked. That's a bit much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. More goblins.
Scourge was a good set.
First strike and haste.
Oh yes.
But I think the first strike and the haste make that too justified.
Yeah, yeah. And especially in Mirrodin, the first set with equipment.
Mirrodin. So many beautiful cards.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to know what the fuck happened to all my Mirrodin cards.
Oh.
It's 4/3. And apparently,
You gotta get a load of those gore swine.
apparently, get a load of these
They're
swine.
they're barely a mouthful, singularly, but get all 6 of them together and have a proper meal.
The Marty were like the gore swine. We were wild hunting packs and really clean the blood from our blades.
Yeah, that'd
Hardened
be very
Berserker.
good in Timir.
Whenever it attacks, the next spell you cast this turn costs 1 less to cast. Nice.
Imagine having like 3 of those attacking at once. That'd be nice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That might help pay for your monstresses.
Exactly. Well, monstrous is an ability. You can't use that mana to. Yeah.
It's useless. Whenever Horde Ambusher blocks, it deals 1 damage to you. Ouch.
Mm-hmm.
You can morph it though.
Yes.
When it's turned face up, target creature can't block this time.
Yes, and this is a fun little mechanic because you can make it look like it's impossible to turn it face up until you do, and all of a sudden it screws your opponent over. Morph is interesting. I really like how Wizards has experimented with Morph over the years.
Perhaps we shall see it again. Maybe
Yeah.
this year?
Maybe.
Oh my god.
I must say the Den of Behemoths set looks like it could interestingly be could use morph.
I've just seen the next card. I'm more interested in that than I am in this one. But here we are. Horde
Oh,
Ambusher.
we just looked at this card.
It's another one of those. Well then, let's get on with this.
Oh yeah, Kamigawa, the transforming cards. Hmm?
Um, tell me about these.
So there are a handful, like maybe a rough dozen cards in Kamigawa that have this little transformation mechanic. It's a kind of permanent way of flipping from one creature to another, or from a creature to an enchantment, or vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these are actually quite powerful, but the requirements to flip them over was quite intense. So this one, initiative, okay. Yeah.
Deals 1 damage to target creature that was dealt damage this turn. When that creature is put into the graveyard, this turn flip initiate blood. So then it becomes a 4/4 legendary. So I guess until it's flipped, it doesn't trigger the legendary rule.
Correct.
Gorka the Unjust deals 4 damage to target creature that was dealt damage this turn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was kind of replaced in the Innistrad set with the werewolves, where it was just on the back of the card rather than on the same side, so they'd still have the room for their ordinary tooling.
Okay, I've got a Gideon that flips.
Yes, and so what they did is in packs with the in those sets with double-sided cards, they had these official kind of proxies in which you could bubble in which card the card was supposed to represent. And so you just keep the dual-sided card, like if you didn't have sleeves, obviously.
Yeah, I always wondered about that. I was like, well, I guess I have to sleeve this now.
Yeah, no, there were cards that literally you just bubbled in what card it was meant to represent in your deck, and it was indistinguishable from other Magic cards on the back.
Nice. And
I've got this
Barbellion.
card. Mm-hmm.
Can't block.
But with a 5/4 with haste, why would you ever block?
Indeed. I'm liking all the teeth. It's not quite aspect of lamprey, but I like all the teeth.
No, nothing. Not many things are aspect of lamprey.
I mean, even Ink to Extinction. There's a lot of teeth there, but it's not quite there.
I agree.
Carrier Fire's Rock. It's a 2/3 for 4. Whenever you play a spirit or arcane spell, target creature can't block this turn.
Yes.
Any good? I'm not sold.
Spirit decks were a pretty big thing in Kamigawa, but they weren't nearly that good in Standard because, as we've said before, Kamigawa Standard was just after Mirrodin Standard, so people were just still playing all the Mirrodin decks, which were substantially better.
Exodus.
Mm-hmm.
Keeper of the Flame.
Keeper of the Flame.
Deals 2 damage to target opponent. Play this ability only if that opponent has more life than you.
Huh. Interesting.
Not bad.
I guess, okay. And it is a wizard. There was a bit of wizard tribal going around at the same time.
You're a wizard.
But yeah, just a good way to catch up between your opponent's life and your own.
Kolgahan 4 in us. It's 3 mana for a... its power is equal to the number of creatures you control. That could go either way. With a red deck, hopefully lots of weenies. Be a boost. Plus you can dash it, so you don't have to leave it lying around being all vulnerable.
Exactly. Do we think a new set would come out like Portal 3 Kingdoms again?
Wow,
I have no idea. I don't know. Probably not. I think the cycle for releasing new sets is kind of been established at this point, and it would be very difficult for Wizards to pull something like that,
Bring us another
especially with huh?
Bring us another Ice Age. Let's go way back.
Exactly.
Colourman Stormsinger?
They reprinted a few cards from Ice Age recently in Modern Horizons, I
Is
think.
that because everybody wants this fucking snow-covered lands?
Yes.
I had so many of those. And I was like, it's kind of cool. I don't know if I'll ever use them for anything.
Exactly. Alright, we have Megamorph and Haste. Just a lot of haste. You can make this a 2/2 if you want to flip it when it's already a 2/2. I don't know. I don't know what this card steal is. You're a hasty 2/2. I don't know.
Can a 2/2 ever be too hasty? It's always fine for a 2/2. Croc Clan Grunt. It's a Goblin Warrior, so it ticking 2 boxes right there. Sacrifice an artifact, it gets +1/+0 until end of turn, and gains first strike until end of turn.
Indeed. There were a lot of artifacts that just came out and sat on the battlefield and did nothing, literally meant to be sacrificed. So stuff like this was actually relatively useful in those red decks. It was red influenced artifacts primarily that had that. That's also why they reprinted a Tog for Mirrodin.
Croc Clan Ogre. It's a 3/3 for 5. Sacrifice an artifact, target creature can't block this turn. It seems expensive for what it do.
Oh, gotta love that little description there.
It believes it's caught an ogre. The ogre believes it's caught 7 goblins.
Yes, Poltergeist Mirrodin is a very artifact heavy set.
Lightning Shrieker. Fly, Trample, Haste. 5/5 for 5. At the beginning of your end step, it gets shuffled into the library.
Alrighty then.
Spicy.
That's cool.
Macetail Histrodon. First strike, haste, 4/4 for 7. Cycling.
It's a beast. It was a beast, and that mattered a lot in that set. And there are also cards that made beasts and generally expensive cards much cheaper.
Nice. Well, you would need it.
I actually own this card.
It's a nice card. It's like a cross between a saber-toothed tiger and an Ankylosaurus.
Absolutely.
Majoring Bully. It's a 2/2 for 2 with prowess. And it attacks each turn if able, so maybe not great. Good, but not super great.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's a bear with upside.
Marauding Mulhorn. That's the thing. 5/3 for 4. Attacks each turn. Unless you control an Advocate of the Beast. I'm sure I've got one of those somewhere.
I'm gonna look up what that card is. Okay. It was a green card. You could just put a +1/+1 counter on target beast creature you control at the end of your turn. So yeah, it's an elf shaman, 2 in green for a 2/3. So it doesn't specifically call out Maulhorn Marauder, which is weird because cards that specifically call out another card typically have that card call out to them.
But like,
very
it's
weird.
Very much a one-way relationship here. Mardu Star. It's 3/1 for 2 with dash.
Dashing. Very dashing.
So dashing. 3 out of 4. And more Mardu. It's Intriga. Raid.
It was a mechanic that stacks quite well with Rush or Dash.
3 color decks.
Mm-hmm.
The fear. The fear.
The expense.
Yeah. Maze Rusher. It's a
Indeed, indeedy.
6-3 for 6. With haste, multi-colour creatures you control have haste.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking hell. I've got a full playset of those. Ooh, another
Yeah, so
cutie.
do I.
Another little cutie.
Oh, more talks.
Megatog.
Oh, shit. Very nice.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually, Megatog. I could have sworn that there's a couple decks that play around Megatog.
Is that what Atog will grow up into?
Pretty much. Yeah.
Sacrifice an artifact. It gets +3/+, gains trample until end of turn.
Oh, I'll read that wonderful flavor text.
In an ironic bit of evolution, the Megatog's dozens of teeth are mainly ornamental. It prefers swallowing things whole. Here, on this plane, we
On
see
this
the
plane of
Megatog.
metal, the metal eating a Tog. The Togs got way too fat and they became lazy. And then when the Phyrexians invaded, I'm sure they were all slain.
Monster's
Monstrous.
Hand. It cannot attack unless you control more land than the defending player. That could go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It cannot black and no attack. Why can't it just say it can't attack or block?
I don't know.
Stay.
I guess because on multiplayer game formats, I guess. Like if you're in a game with 3 or 4 players, that text could be weird. So the way it's printed, I guess, has to avoid making that contradiction. I don't know.
Ogre Legfoot. This is quite an adorable image, just like friend.
Mm-hmm. That
Whenever it becomes
adorable
blocked,
red art from Meriden.
right. Whenever Ogre Legfoot becomes blocked by an artifact creature, destroy that creature. It's 3/3 for 5.
Hell yeah, you do you, ogre.
Friend. Oh, this
Mm-hmm.
has been reprinted forever.
Yes, it has.
It's the Pack Mastiff.
Mm-hmm.
The Pack Mastiff. The Pack
Pack
Mastiff.
Mastiff.
We don't need to get too far into that one.
I don't know if Pack Mastiff was a reprint, but I definitely have a lot of them.
It feels like it's been back a few times. I could be wrong.
I
Pensive
think you
Minotaur.
are, but
The champion and her companions marched through the night, but the battle was over before they arrived. In the middle of the carnage sat a solitary Minotaur, lost in what seemed to the champion to be thought.
yeah, it is only an M20.
Really?
Yeah,
Maybe it's just because I have lots of them then.
yeah.
Pitchburn Devils.
I don't
Devils.
know, Omegon. Why is leg indeed?
Why is leg? How is foot?
Mm.
When it dies, it deals 3 damage to target creature or player. It's a 3/3
This
for
is
5.
it's quite nice, especially if you can start reanimating it in a red-black deck.
Putting it back. Make it hurt.
Like it's not an amazing card, but it has its uses.
Regathan Firecat. It's an elemental kitty.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 4/1 for 3.
If you can make it stick, I guess.
Feels expensive.
It is very expensive.
Especially to have like no other abilities on it.
Mm-hmm.
Riot Piker. First strike.
Yes.
Attack
Mm-hmm.
creature unavailable.
This is an interesting card. Mm-hmm. Because that ability is quite interesting. Having all those stats and ability text combined together does make for an interesting card, especially because there were the cards around it at the time actually made that into a pretty decent card when it might otherwise seem terrible.
Mm-hmm. It's always the things around it, I guess. Rubble
Mm-hmm.
Belt Marker?
Mm-hmm.
Blood Rush. Discard it. Target attacking creature gets +3/+3. Or it's a
I
3/3
mean,
for 4.
it's a card that can either be a red, a giant growth, or a 3/3 cat, which is a nice bit of maneuverability.
Red giant growth it is.
Versatility, I should say.
Sabertooth Outrider. It's
Mm-hmm.
formidable.
Mm-hmm.
Spicy. Okay. More satyrs.
Satyrs.
Heroic.
Mm-hmm.
Couple of those.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like a playset would have been good for the time. This is the
Yes.
problem with a lot of my old cards. I don't have playsets, so I guess maybe a commander deck at some point.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Scalding Salamander. It's a 2/1 for 3, but for 0, Salamander deals 1 damage to each creature without flying defending player controls. This ability only if Scalding Salamander is attacking and only once each turn.
So whenever you attack your opponent, it deals 1 damage to every one of their creatures, unless you decide not to.
And like, why would you not? I feel generous on this turn. I will let you not have that.
Exactly.
Scorchwalker, it's a 5/1 for 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this one is definitely much more useful for the Blood Rush.
Yeah, especially if you got something with like decent toughness already.
Or if you're just attacking with a bunch of things and just one of your things happens to not be blocked, then you Blood Rush it and then deal a sudden extra 5 damage out of nowhere for only 3 mana.
Nice, especially if you've got, say, lifelink.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Lifelink or Trample or, yeah, any of those wonderful things.
Why not all of them?
Infect.
Brawler.
Mm-hmm.
It's 2/3 for 3 with dash.
Mm-hmm. Seems pretty basic.
Yeah, basic. Scorch a Spitter.
Mm.
Whenever it attacks,
Does that make me a Scorch Swallower?
Could be. Hang on, isn't this? Oh, it's an M20. That's why. I was like, I've
Yes,
seen
it
this
is.
recently.
Mm-hmm. Bye, Poltergeist.
Thanks for coming.
If you come around the Stone Monkey Radio Discord, you can send me your friend code in Magic the Gathering Arena, and then we could play together.
You can send it to me, but I won't be as good.
Yes.
I'm not platinum.
I play too much, but also not enough.
If I can get past 4 in the standard event, I'll be happy. At the moment, 4 is my max, 3 is my average.
I don't do those events too much. I just save my gold.
More gold, rather.
That's true.
Because it's what, 500 to enter? And you get up to 1,000 if you get a 7 streak?
Yep. Makes sense, Poltergeist. I felt weird about it as well, but with Magic the Gathering Arena, it just feels much more interactive and useful, and it's the only way I can really play without spending exorbitant amounts of money.
Yeah, and I feel like I play different Magic. Like, paper Magic is, this is what I've got, I'm going to try and build the best I can with that. Whereas playing Magic Arena very much feels like, I'm going to play the fantasy deck. This is the deck I can't afford with like 4
These are your wish list cards, yeah.
Yeah. Although, maybe one day I will get to build one of those decks before they rotate out of standard. Looking at the new...
I actually managed...
Oh, it's not Commander decks.
I managed to make a standard deck based on one of my arena decks once. It actually turned out really well.
Nice.
I know we didn't talk about the elemental much, but there's not really too much to it.
Nah. Shockmore Dragon. It's like Flamey Dragon, but, you know, more lightning.
Yes.
Trying to remember what the new cards... new card thing that was announced
What do you mean, new card
yesterday.
thing?
Oh, it's these challenger decks. That was it.
Yes.
I was like,
Yeah, the challenge decks are fun.
they are. That Cavalcade Charge has got most of the stuff you need in it to make like the mono red deck that was in the Wealth this weekend.
Yes, they're kind of just barely toned down versions of decks like that. The only place they're really lacking is their land base most of the time, but
Yeah, you get
otherwise
quite the two lands.
they're able to be just taken out of the box and played with quite readily. That's actually how I made my last paper standard deck as well, which was an adaptation of a deck I had used a lot in War of the Spark standard.
Yeah.
But yes, the challenger decks are good. They only last until rotation the same year.
Yes.
And then they kind of need to be adapted a bit, but it's still a good baseline if you do want to just go to a standard event that...
They'd still be good in Modern though, right? Wouldn't they?
Hmm?
They'd still be good in Modern though, right?
In Pioneer and Modern, but not many of those cards are Modern viable. Some of them are Pioneer viable, though.
Okay. Skim Red Goblin. Blood Rush. I mean, the Blood Rush.
Yes.
Yeah, I suppose if you get it in, like, get it out in round 2, or start making things spicy. It gets +2/+2 and has trample as long as you control the beast. Bring me the beast.
Control that beast.
Stir the beast! We are going to have to move a bit quickly because it's already 11 o'clock. And we've got through less than half of these games.
And the green-red deck in Legion. What? No. Alright. Flip a coin. If you lose...
5 for 7.
Seems absolutely terrible.
Yep. Beautiful artwork. Awful card.
Absolutely.
Skywrecker Giant. It's 4/3 for 4. With reach. Yes.
Ah, yes. It's one of those cards where you have to say, oh shit, that had a reach. There are a lot of those these days.
Yes. Smelt Ward Gatekeepers.
Schmelt.
Don't ward it.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever it enters the battlefield, if you control 2 or more gates, fuck gates. Gain control of target creature and opponent controls until end of turn. I guess maybe not fuck gate then.
This was, I think, the best effect in its cycle. Still a bad cycle. I know I talk about it literally every time we get to that card from its cycle in one of these videos.
Spark Elemental. Wow, it's a 3/1 for 1 with trample and haste, but it does just vanish away.
Indeed. Definitely something that is much more useful with graveyard recursion.
Yeah, I guess. There's ways you can make it good.
Absolutely. It is certainly not a bad card. It is a good card. Let's see. Attacks each turn are Fable. It's got dash. Okay, this looks pretty nice.
I feel like the dash is the better option there.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess you have to eventually start casting your creatures permanently. You can't just rely on all creatures with dash because you just won't have enough mana to dash with more than one creature a turn.
Stormwind Dragon. Flying. First one. When it's placed up, you get a +1/+1 counter for each dragon creature you control. So in a dragon deck, could be fun.
This looks like it could be quite good. A good finisher.
Striking Sliver.
Yes, one of the best common slivers from Core Set 2014.
Oh. All of them get first strike. Time for Sliver's deck. Summit Prowler.
Prowl that summit.
Think of that ice troll from Skyrim that everyone hates. It's 4/3 for 4.
Yes, it is.
I bought a playset of these because they looked interesting.
They're a good card.
I'm glad I had an eye for a good card.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was talking about putting a mono red deck together. I have put one together. I bought slightly more cards than I needed, and it didn't make the cut.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it should have done.
It's a good sideboard card.
Yeah. If I could think sensibly to put a sideboard together, I probably would put that in there.
Fair.
Alley Dasher. It's
Mm-hmm.
2/2 with haste.
Indeed.
But it's another one of those attack each turn, and I'm not super keen on that. In
Yeah, it
practice,
removes
I've made it work,
options.
but
Yes.
like just to look at it on the card, I'm like, but.
Now, this card is a fun little way to just say, okay, the game's ending soon. Because it's a 6/4 for 6, which in itself is a powerhouse. And then on subsequent turns, you're able to just start dumping your spare mana into it. You know, the mana alone that you need to cast it allows you to shock your opponent every turn. And it's just good to have mana sinks like that in case you end up whiffing on a draw and draw an additional land.
Raid.
Shadow Legends.
When it enters the battlefield, put with a +1/+1 counter on it if you attack with a creature this turn. So after your main phase, pop it on.
After your combat phase, in your second main phase.
I know what I meant. You know what I meant. We got there.
Yes.
Wildfire Cerberus. Monstrous. 4/3 for 5. When it becomes monstrous, deal 2 damage to each opponent and each creature your opponent controls. Well,
that's quite nice.
Yeah.
Quite nice indeed.
Coming on to one of my favourite cards.
Active Treason. It has been reprinted time and time again.
So
sometimes it's good, sometimes it's horrendous.
In what way?
Largely, it is okay.
In what way the difference between good and horrendous?
Depends. Do you have a way to sacrifice the creature for value at the end of the turn?
Yeah, that's always fun.
Because otherwise, if you don't, you've just stolen something and hit with it once, and that's it.
Yep.
All for the guilds. Sorry?
Yep, sorry, go ahead. All for the guilds. Monocolored creatures can't attack. Can't block this turn. Could do some
good way to finish. If you're having that, gruel aggro deck, but, I mean, your monocolored creatures can still attack when you play it, I guess. It's it was an okay card. I don't think it ever saw any play in Standard that... Ooh.
What set is this?
That is original Ravnica set.
Ooh. Fancy. Breath of Fury, enchant creature you control. When it deals combat damage to a player, sacrifice it and attach Breath of Fury to a creature you control. If you do, untap all creatures you control after this phase. There is an additional combat phase. Shit.
Okay, so... Wow, it's just a way to repeat combat phases. That's... yeah. Some of the rares from original Ravnica block are insane. I have a really fun one called Warp World that is 8 mana, but it essentially just turns the game into a chaotic mess.
Ravnica, City of Guilds. Quite well on the rares though. Burning Earth. It has everyone.
Otherwise known as one of the best cards to play as a mono red deck.
How so?
I mean, as soon as you play it in a mono red deck, you're never going to get hit from it, and most of your opponents are going to have nothing but non-basic lands.
I guess so.
Mm-hmm.
Call of the Full Moon. Oh, whoa. Oh, oh,
A
oh,
woo?
oh.
A woo?
Enchanted creature gets +3/+2 and has trample. At the beginning of upkeep, if a player casts 2 or more spells last turn, sacrifice Call of the Full Moon.
Mm-hmm. So that uses a few similar mechanics uh, from the original Innistrad werewolves, but yeah, an okay card.
Carbonize, fantastic art once again. It looks
Mm-hmm.
like some kind of bird person.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna guess that is a white bird person.
Mm-hmm.
Carbonize deals 3 damage to target creature or player. That creature can't be regenerated this turn. If the creature will be put into graveyard, exile it. Fuck it.
Okay,
Fuck it into
so
the
a strictly worse lava coil. Except this one is at instant speed, I guess. But yeah, lava coils typically. That type of ability is useful.
Apparently Chandra is outraged.
Chandra does get outraged from time to time. It happens.
Chandra's the one with the goggles, right?
Yes, the one with all the fire and burning.
The fire and the burning and the goggles.
Fire and the burning and the goggles. Yes.
Just like goggles, what can I say? Chandra's outraged deals 4 damage to target creature and 2 damage to that creature's controller. This is another one where I've been looking recently at M20 cards going, I will put a red deck together. And then it did
It
not make the
is.
cut.
It is occasionally okay.
Yeah, that's why it didn't make the cut. Because it's only occasionally okay.
Mm-hmm.
Chaos Sphere.
Mm-hmm.
I don't recognise that symbol.
That is from Mirage, I think.
Scan it. Oh, come on.
Yes, it is from Mirage.
Wow. Come on.
Hmm.
Oh, wow. My scanner cannot pick it up. That's quite some artwork.
Mm-hmm.
Creature flying cannot block creature without flying. Okay, I guess that has its benefits.
Mm-hmm.
When was Mirage?
It was very early on. I'm trying to look right now.
96, so 97, I guess?
Mm, I thought that means it would have been in 95 or
Oh,
so.
the other way around, yeah. Ah, got it.
Right. I'm going to take a quick drink of water and cough,
Quick
so I
drink.
will mute myself.
So that is... Oh, it's worth £2.18. Spicy. It's on the reserve list. Mirage Rare. Collector's number 164. Enchant World.
Enchant World is just, it means it's an enchantment, like a standard enchantment. But back in that day, you couldn't have an enchantment that didn't enchant something.
What's with
So they were enchant worlds.
What was with the planes? Because I remember, like, playing the sideways plane cards. Do you know anything about those?
Oh, that was Plane Chase, a sort of supplemental, kind of a supplemental product that Magic released. It was essentially its own like little multiplayer game that everyone would have like a deck of planes and their normal deck as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then everybody would take their plane cards and then shuffle them all together into a big group pile. And then you would play a multiplayer game. And then every turn, someone could roll a plane die. And you could either plane shift and go on to the next plane in the deck, or you could land on like the whatever the chaos one is and have a weird like extra boost effect from that plane. It was fun. I have a plane chase deck myself. It was the red green elementals one from 2011 the first plane chase set.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be interested to see more of those. Clear a path. Destroy target creature with defender. Fuck blue, fuck white.
Yep. Also, it doesn't matter because defender is bad. I don't know.
I tend to only use creatures with defender in draft. And only
Mm-hmm.
because it was the only thing that was left. And I needed
Exactly.
creatures for my deck. Collateral damage. Additional cost.
Mm-hmm.
Sacrifice a creature. Deals 3 damage to target creature or player.
There are much better versions of this card now, but it's not a terrible effect, especially when you're in formats with lots of tokens.
It feels expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Back on the res. Commune with love.
Mm-hmm.
Exile top X cards of your library until the end of your next turn. You may play those cards.
That's fun. That's an effect that red likes to have.
With those exile and then play things, you've still
Mm-hmm.
got to pay for them though, right?
Yes. It will say if you don't have to pay the mana cost. Otherwise, you do have to pay.
So such a thing does exist where you don't have to pay for them.
Yes,
Okay.
but it'll say it. It'll say it specifically.
Demolish.
Mm-hmm.
Get out of it. Dragon Breath. Enchanted creature has haste. And you pump it
And
for +1
it has
+0.
fire breathing.
Mm-hmm. When if a creature with CMC of 6 or more comes into play, you may return Dragon Breath from your graveyard to play, enchanting that creature. Hey, you got a dragon out? You want to make it refight?
Indeed, this is actually where the term fire breathing came from, this specific card.
Ah, fancy.
Mm-hmm.
I learned a thing.
Mm-hmm.
How about Dragon Fodder?
Ooh. Get those tokens ready to sacrifice to the almighty dragon gods.
Oh god, I can't remember what it was. I was playing against someone who was just generating food tokens and food tokens and food tokens. I was like, I don't know what they're up to, but I feel like they haven't really attacked. They're not really trying to gain more life, and then they just did something that sacrificed 8 tokens, and it was just like, bye, fucker.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That was a fun experience.
Wow. It's really fun to play someone like that whose a whole deck is based around food tokens and then play a card like Deputy of Detention, which removes all things with the same name off the field. Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Indeed.
Erratic Explosion. Choose a target creature or player. Reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a non-land card. Erratic Explosion deals damage equal to that card's CMC to that creature or player. Put the reveal cards on the bottom of your library in any order, so it doesn't even matter that you've revealed a bunch of cards, potentially.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I wonder what happens with Erotic Explosion. I wonder what sort of revealing happens with that card.
You have to take off any number of cards, and the number of nipples exposed at the end of it is the number of damage you deal.
Oh, wow.
This is my new unset. Unclothed. Exquisite Firecraft.
I'm sure that would get funded on Kickstarter immediately.
I don't know if Watsy would feel happy about that.
No, but still, that doesn't stop people from trying to do all sorts of spurious Kickstarters.
Yeah.
Why can't we follow that trend?
Exquisite Firecraft, or Firebow for anyone else, deals 4 damage to target creature or player. Spell Mastery. If there are 2 or more instant or sorcery cards in your graveyard, Exquisite Firecraft can't be countered by spells or ability. Fuck you, blue.
Mm-hmm. Occasionally, red does get some good fuck you blue cards.
Good.
That's one of them.
Because the world needs more fuck you blue.
Although, technically speaking, that card would be best in a blue-red deck.
Fuck other people's blue.
Exactly.
My blue is fine.
Mm-hmm.
Red blue, that's what, is it?
Is it? Yes.
Anything. I'm learning.
Is it? It is.
Feedback bolt. Deals damage to target creature player equal to the number of artifacts you control. Good in an artifacts deck.
Absolutely, you could get to absurd things like 20 damage with that very easily.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Fierce Invocation.
Mm.
Manifest the top 2 cards of your library. Then put 2+1/+1 counters on it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Oh
50
my
damage
god,
plus 1.
you should be sure to get your sleep if you need it.
Yeah, you should. We'd super
Mm-hmm.
appreciate you coming out though.
Absolutely. Same goes to everybody who's watched.
Yeah.
And who's watched the VOD who has been confused to shit. I mean,
Go back and
whatever.
watch. Go back and watch the previous 2. You might have some idea of what we're doing here.
You know, I've actually gone back and watched the VODs on these things simply so I know how I sound and, like, just to make sure the sort of commentary I was given was interesting.
You sound
I actually
insightful,
enjoyed it.
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad you enjoyed your own content.
Indeed.
Fiery conclusion. It's a happy ending, but it's a bit spicy. As an additional cost to cast Fiery Conclusion, sacrifice a creature. It does 5 damage to target creature. I mean, getting rid of like a cheap 1/1 near the end of the game, or even like round 2, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
could be a thing.
It's a way to get past just a roadblock to your aggro.
Yeah, yeah. If they
Like,
manage to get like a prime, the white thing that gets +1/+1 whenever you get life.
mm-hmm.
You know the thing.
Ajani's Pride Mate.
Yeah, Bridemate. That's
Mm-hmm.
where I was going. A fairy
Yes.
impulse. Does 2 damage to target creature.
Yeah. I am so glad that that card just continues to lose the support for it because it should not have been reprinted in War for the Spark and kept standard legal for as long as it has been.
You're not a fan. I see it in a lot
Uh,
of decks, and it's just like, oh, I'm gonna have to deal with this very quickly, otherwise this is going
it's
to be a problem.
just not the sort of deck that I like to play against. You know, I mean, I get
No.
it. White weenies is a thing, but it's not sort of thing that I get into. You know.
Flame Shadow Conjuring. Whenever a
Mm-hmm.
non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may play 1 red. If you do, put a token onto the battlefield that is a copy of that creature. That token gains haste. Exile it at the beginning of your next step.
Very nice. So a way to just get a clone of every creature you summon.
Gonna double
Lasts
up
for
on
a
those, and
turn.
this one's gonna have haste, so fuck you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Maybe in a red-green deck?
Yeah.
Big and damaging and hurtful.
I mean, it's free copies of a creature, so or not free, but insanely cheap.
Mm-hmm. Enchanted creature you control. It gets +1/+1. Whenever enchanted
Mm-hmm.
creature deals combat damage to a player, you may sacrifice Flame Speaker's Willy. If you do, destroy target artifact.
Yep. So pretty good. This is from Journey into Nyx, so obviously just having a cheap enchantment and something that can trigger heroic, obviously very good. Artifacts weren't a big deal, but if your opponent had one that fucked you up, you could just sacrifice it and not really miss anything because you've already gotten the heroic and constellation triggers.
Get the constellation. I'm liking constellation. It makes me
Constellation is fun. And Eutropia, the twice favored, is a beautiful card, both in art and in just design.
Flowstone Flood from Exodus. Buyback.
Mm-hmm.
Pay
Mm-hmm.
3 life, discard a card at random. I don't know
Yes,
how else to
indeed.
decide. Destroy a land. It's very
Yes.
expensive.
Yep.
Well, there it is.
Is that the
Font
end?
of Ire.
Oh, it's not, of course.
Font
Okay.
of Ire. It deals 5 damage to target player.
Yeah, so again, this is something that is
5
just constellation fuel.
Ah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And anything that gets for each enchantment that you have.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Although I don't know if there was too much of that particular text going around in that set.
There is now.
I guess.
Looking at you, all that glitters.
Yeah.
Furious Resistance. Target blocking creature gets +3/+0 and gains first strike until end of turn. Fuck
Yes.
you. Green, I
Mm-hmm.
guess.
Mm-hmm.
It's better than a gathering. It's a goblin gathering.
I like this card.
+1/+1. A 1/1. A red goblin creature. Tokens equal to 2 plus the number of cards named Goblin Gathering in your graveyard.
Okay. I predicted the Cavalcade of Calamity Goblin deck before it became a thing. Like, as soon as Ravnica Allegiance came out, I tried to make that into a really good standard deck, but it wasn't until Core Set 2020 came out that I was vindicated in seeing my baby become a tournament-ready archetype.
Nice. I like the flavor text on that. 2's a party, 3's a felony.
Mm-hmm.
Goblin Oriflame. I don't
Ooh.
recognise this set. It
That
feels
is
like...
Modern Horizons,
Oh.
and that's
Possibly
a
another
good
one I've
card.
recently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've got a playset, so I'm guessing this is one I bought singles of recently, and then just was like, doesn't quite go in that set.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a
Well,
nice
I mean,
card, but
if you're getting bulk play sets of commons and uncommons, it's pretty cheap.
I
Yeah,
think it's
again,
like,
that's also Modern Horizons.
yeah, I think it's like 20p for an uncommon at my local shop, which
Yeah,
isn't bad.
makes sense. One of my local shops, it's 25 cents, so adds up.
Yeah.
Get a play set for $1.
Mhm. Goblin War Party. You can have 3/1/1
Mm-hmm.
red goblin tokens, or you can have +1/+1 and gain haste until end of turn.
Or
For
you can
all
do
creatures
both.
you control. Why not both?
Yeah,
If they have
7 mana,
haste. Oh yeah, I
set
guess so. They get haste, and then you just
7 mana for 6/6 of damage.
throw that in with a Nyx Lotus that you can untap. So I guess red blue again.
I guess.
Just like here is a billion fucking
Mana.
here is a billion mana available. Here are untold uh, untold like token creatures out.
Mm-hmm.
Goblin War Strike deals damage equal to the
Oh,
number of goblins you control.
that flavor text is just like my brain on ADHD. No, not ADHD. On a like dyslex
Dyslexia.
stuff. The thing where your brain scrambles all the letters and words.
Fire aim ready.
Mm-hmm.
It's another white border card. We've not seen one of those for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Hammer of Begarden.
Huh.
Deals 3
My
damage
cousin
to target
has
creature or
a
player.
copy of this as well.
Return it from your graveyard to your hand. Play this ability only during your upkeep.
Yeah.
Spicy.
So the thing with 8th edition, which this is that it actually came. It was really geared towards beginner players.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you see all the cards with these borders and the little 8 symbol are entirely simple.
Mm-hmm.
They actually had a fun beginners pack, which I got, and it was one of the things that got me into the game, essentially, where it was a few packs of 8th edition pre-built decks and a CD with a little weird video game with which you could just challenge an AI player to a bunch of uh, battles with really terrible uh, decks made out of cards from that expansion. It was really simple, and there was not much variety, but I played the shit out of that game because, yeah, I just never had people to play against because I was much better than everyone else in my family.
That does sound kind of familiar. I
Hi,
also had
Connie.
Hey Connie, I also had a VHS tape of how to play Magic
Oh, fun.
that just had the most ridiculous, like bad graphics, like bad
Mm-hmm.
90s graphics. And it was basically two kids in this lab with like some guy in a lab coat just going, here's the thing, and this guy's gonna tap this, and that's generating more mana, but oh no, here's the big monster. And in the
Mm-hmm.
background, there's like scientists being beaten up by fucking hill giants and shit. That must have been, what, 96, 97? We laughed a lot.
Something like that.
More than learning
I
how to play
found it.
Magic.
You can find the 8th edition starter set on Google for $30.
Nice.
Mm-hmm,
Will it
mm-hmm.
run on modern computers?
I mean, you can emulate older hardware in order to do that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Illuminate. It
Mm-hmm.
deals X damage to target creature. If you paid the kicker cost, it deals X to that creature's controller. If you played the 3 plus blue kicker cost, you draw X cards.
Nice. Connie, I do remember Duel Masters. I have the Game Boy Advance Duel Masters game, which has like essentially all of Duel Masters cards on it. It's really fucking fun because it's just like a JRPG but with Duel Masters, which I mean, the game never explained the controls to you fully or the like game mechanics, but as a kid just trying to bash a way through it, it was a very fun game.
Mm-hmm. Impact tremors. Whenever a creature
Mm-hmm.
is battlefield under your control, impact tremors deals 1 damage to each opponent. Controls the
Interesting.
player, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much for one-on-one, really.
Or if you just have a bunch of token generators, in which you can make like 5, 6, 7 tokens in a turn and deal 7 damage to each opponent.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Incite War. Choose one. Each target creature controls a player controls. Target creatures target player controls attack this turn if able. All creatures you control gain first strike until end of turn, or you can entwine because entwine is wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can infuriate.
Ah, classic infuriation.
Infuriate. I like the new art for. Is there newer art for infuriate? I feel like there is.
Yeah, with Theros Beyond Death, there's a very, very handsome Minotaur just hulking out.
+3/+2 until end of turn. Not bad for a
Mm-hmm.
1. Infectious Bloodlust. Can't come to work. I've caught Bloodlust.
I don't know
Enchant.
how, Connie, but I somehow acquired like 5 Duel Masters cards. I don't know how I got them, but like physical cards. I I wish that game kind of kicked off. It was kind of fun, as much of a knockoff as it was.
Infectious Bloodlust. Enchanted creature has +2/+1 and has haste and attacks each turn if able. When it dies, you may search your library for a card named Infectious Bloodlust, reveal it and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Recursion.
This card is okay, but I think that the Sword of Damocles version that was recently made is much better.
Yes. I can't remember what it's actually called, but I know Sword of Damocles.
Yes.
It's
The
a
classic
classic.
Lava Axe.
Lava axe. A lava axe for all occasions.
Indeed,
And,
indeedy.
and where there is a lava axe, why not follow it up with this wonderful lava dart?
Mm-hmm.
And where there is this lava dart, why not follow it up with this magnificent lava spike?
Indeed. And this one is actually useful because it was an arcane and had that splice stuff going on with from Kamigawa.
And then, lightning diadem.
Mm-hmm.
2 damage to target creature, all player, and enchanted creature gets +2/+2.
For 6 mana, that is not worth it.
No. Like, maybe 4? I'll give you 4. How's that? Can we start haggling on mana costs?
Mm-hmm. Right?
Lightning Talons. I feel like the contrast is really fucking up how good this art is. Because lightning's all
I think
purpley.
you're right. Mm-hmm.
Lightning's all purpley and it's really pretty, and I'm sorry that I can't make that work better.
Connie, is there any way you could link that in the Discord? Because I have no clue what you're talking about, but I really want to know what it is. Ooh, yes, Molten Birth was a thing. It was good.
Oh, sorry, I'm just reading Connie's comment. Recently saw the anime where they still played Magic. So weird. I mean, in the beginning, it was just an anime to get the Asian market into Magic, but then it got retooled into its own thing.
Yes. I did not know that that was the history of Duel Masters.
The more you know. Thank you, Connie, for educating us. I do appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
2/1/1 red elemental creatures tokens onto the battlefield, then flip a coin. If you win, return Molten Birth to its owner's hand. So, actually, of the flippy things we've seen tonight, that's not the worst.
No, it's not.
Mm.
Coin flips are generally not done too often in this game, at least not in the unsets, but sometimes they're not terrible, inherently.
Lose calm. Welcome to my life.
Mm-hmm.
Gain control of the target creature until end of turn. Untap that creature. It gains haste until end of turn and can't be blocked this turn except by 2 or more creatures.
I like that little addendum because it kind of makes it impossible for the creature to not trade. So either the opponent trades like 2, maybe loses even 3 creatures ideally off of it, or you just get in for free damage. I have no idea how it would have performed in its standard at the time, but doesn't seem terrible.
Magma Spray.
Mm.
Do, 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 do.
Gotta be careful where you splash that magma spray.
Yeah, always make sure you wipe the seat after magma spray.
Mm-hmm.
Magmatic Chasm. Creatures without flying can't block this turn, so fuck you.
Careful. Mm-hmm.
3 of those. Oh, is this going to be spoilt again by the contrast? Again. I don't know why this is struggling so much with the purple, or the pinks rather.
Mm.
Just imagine Lilith's pink. You know
Mm-hmm.
how Lilith has the pink lightnings.
Mm-hmm.
Mardu. You like a Mardu?
Mm-hmm.
A target creature gets +2/+2. And has first strike as long as you control a white or black permanent. Damn you,
Yes.
Mardu!
Which makes this card very worth it, but without makes it rather lackluster. So attaching it to a white or black permanent would make it quite useful.
Too many. I've got 5. I don't need 5.
Mm.
Massive raid. Deals damage
Ooh.
to target creature or player equal to the number of creatures you control.
Huh. I don't remember this card, and it's from Gatecrash. That's really neat.
It says ouch in
Yes.
several languages.
As an instant and only 3 mana, that's actually quite nice.
Right.
Especially for the set it was in.
Especially if you've got like a bunch of like 1/1 tokens out.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, just put these out. By the way, you're dead.
Mm-hmm. This seems like an extremely lackluster card.
I suppose it's any kind of permanent.
Yeah, so they can choose whatever's least useful for them and just sack it.
I guess. Wait, hang on.
Like I can even sacrifice a land to it.
Huh.
Thanks for linking the thing in the Discord, Connie. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Pillage.
Oof. Destroy target artifact or land. It can't be regenerated. Seems very lackluster, but I guess.
Another one that I got recently and thought it seemed like a better idea than it was.
Yes. I'm sure there are uses for it. Possibility Storm! I
Pissability
actually really
Storm.
like this card. I really like this card.
Tell me about this card.
So, it makes the game fucking bonkers in which nobody will know what's going on. Essentially, it says whenever you cast any kind of spell, you have to not cast that spell, but start digging through your library until you find another card with the same type as that original spell. So if it's a creature, you have to dig through your library until you find another creature. If it's an enchantment, planeswalker, etc. So then you just kind of dig through until you find an appropriate thing, and then it's just as if you're casting that different spell instead. You don't have to, but that's what comes net. But that's essentially substituted for the original spell that you tried to cast. Then everything is shuffled up and then put on the bottom of your library afterwards.
So theoretically, you could get just pay something really cheap, and then just find something much better.
Yes. There were some interesting combos you could do with cards with this card back in Dragon's Maze. You could like only run Possibility Storm and like Omniscience as enchantments in your deck. So as soon as you have like one Possibility Storm out, all you need to do is you cast your one enchantment, like another copy of Possibility Storm, and then have it switched up to be Omniscience, which is amazing, which is like play all cards without their casting costs.
Have a good record, I love you.
I love you too.
Hi, Laura.
A wild Laura has briefly said. That's because Kel was talking. I realised you couldn't hear it, but Kel was talking.
I assumed you were just ignoring my presence, like,
no.
hello, silent hello.
I was listening. I was being talked to.
That's fair.
Love you.
Sorry, Laura.
Have a good record. I'm nearly done, so
No
I will free the internet for you very shortly.
I'm getting awake, so hooray!
I'm glad you got up. Pyrostatic Pillar. Whenever a player plays a spell with CMC of 3 or less, Pyrostatic Pillar deals 2 damage to that player.
That seems like something awful to run in your own red deck.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, feels very self-destructive.
Yes.
Pyrotechnics deals 4 damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures and or players.
This card's reprinted from time to time. It generally will do okay because you're able to say, all right, I'm going to kill these 2 creatures and then the excess damage will be done to you. Or I'm going to just kill this big creature. Or I'm just going to hit you in the face. It's very versatile, and that versatility definitely is a bonus, even if it doesn't seem like it's the best damage per mana ratio.
I think just having the versatility is good there.
Mm-hmm.
How about a Rain of Rust?
Mm-hmm.
Destroy target artifact or destroy target land. Orange white.
Why
not both?
Because it costs 9 mana to do that, when 5 mana is way too much to do either of the one things.
Nice art though.
It is wonderful art, horrible card.
Rending Volley. Can't be countered by spells or abilities. Deals 4 damage to target a white or blue creature because fuck white and blue.
Exactly. It's a good card.
Well, talking of fucking white and blue, let's get on to a full roast. 5 damage to target creature without flying. Not bad for 2.
Not bad at all. Although that one is probably more of a fuck green.
Yeah. Riddle of Lightning. Choose target creature or player. Scry 3. Reveal the top card of your library. Riddle of Lightning deals damage equal to that card's converted mana cost to that creature or player.
That sounds like it could be very interesting. I like it. It's a not good card, but I like it.
I'm sorry, just trying to see what the fuck is on that card.
Mm-hmm.
Someone doing a thing.
Lots of lightning, I imagine.
Lightning. Oh, it's another one in that. Got it recently. Decided against it.
Mm. Yeah, land destruction is just not good.
Not for them.
Mm-hmm.
Especially not if
The
they've
only
been...
good land destruction these days is when you're eventually trying to finish up in a prison deck.
What if they've spent an inordinate number of their excess lands on turning them into 3/3 creatures?
That is a case where land destruction is creature destruction, and creature destruction is always good.
And also, by that point, really fucking them over on land.
Mm-hmm.
Shiv's Embrace!
Shiv's Embrace is a very good card. Just +2/+2, flying and fire breathing is very good for 4 mana.
Mm-hmm. Also, Shiv.
Especially because this came out between the different Theros sets.
Sarkhan's Rage deals 5 damage to target creature or player. If you control no dragons, Sarkhan's Rage deals 2 damage to you.
Mm-hmm. This is in a set with a lot of dragons, so that helped.
Best find that dragon, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Good evening, Fury. That is a cool goblin.
Yes, it is. It is a very pretty card.
+5/+0 and gains haste. Not bad for 3.
Mm-hmm.
Pop that on a 1/1.
Connie Dono says, I like the destroy lands to buff your creatures as a last-ditch effort to win. Yeah, we actually started the stream talking about a few of those cards.
Mm-hmm. But maybe
I don't know if that was before or after it was discovered that I wasn't audible by the stream, but yeah. Actually, I think it was far before we figured out that I wasn't being heard.
Yeah, we started hearing you somewhere around the seas.
Yes.
Seismic Stomp creatures without flying can't block this turn.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunate.
We've seen this attack. Sorry, we've seen this ability many times. It is frequently okay.
Shatter.
Classic. It's been a card ever since Alpha.
Shatter.
Mm-hmm.
I think I prefer this one.
Yeah, the Mirrodin version is very nice.
Lovely artwork. Ah, baby.
Shock through the heart, and you're to blame.
So many shocks.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I love how they've kept the Kaladesh art for Shock for so long. It's such a good art.
It is great art. Also, goggles.
Mm-hmm. And it's that art that's been used for Shock since like 2016 or something.
Shrapnel Blast.
Mm-hmm.
Sacrifice an artifact.
Yep.
Deals 5 damage to target creature or player for 2. So, if you've got a cheap artifact, go for it.
As I said, this set was full of very cheap artifacts geared towards red players to literally play them, get the one-time ability, and then sacrifice them for profit.
Spell bombs? Was that this series?
Yeah, the spell bombs and a few other things. I think there were some artifacts that only got their effect from being sacrificed, but I could be wrong in thinking of another set.
Mm-hmm. Slice and dice. 4 damage to each creature for 6. I mean, that's pretty good.
Yes. I mean, it's the same amount of damage as Storm's Wrath, and that's 4 mana these days, but the cycling ability is very useful too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, cycle and deal 1 damage to each creature is really good against mono red aggro.
Mm-hmm. Smelt.
Schmelt.
Schmelt.
Otherwise known as
schmelted.
Otherwise known as objectively far better shatter. Because it's the same thing for just red.
Oh no. It's a bad afternoon when you shatter. Spite of Mogus. Spite of Mogus deals damage to target creature equal to the number of instant and sorcery cards in your graveyard. Scry 1.
As a 1 mana spell, this is actually quite nice. Like, there have been a few abilities like this that have been printed on cards in the recent Ravnica block in Is It? But having this card with decks like that would be amazing. Like, yeah, this looks like it's a pretty decent card.
We will allow it to live. Starfall. Amazing art.
Indeed.
So for 5, Starfall deals 3 damage to target creature. If that creature is an enchantment, Starfall deals 3 damage to that creature's controller.
That's cool.
It's pretty. Storm Streaker.
Yep.
It's another one of them. Seemed like a good idea. Didn't make it in.
It's a nice little card for winning sudden battles, but not much you can do about it if you only have like 1/1s or something.
More land destruction. This time from Kamigawa.
Kamigawa was all about land destruction in red, as we said earlier.
It is a beautiful, beautiful piece of art.
Yes, it is. Kamigawa had some divine art.
I wonder if it was specific artists. I don't have time to check all the artist names. Structural Collapse. Target player sacrifices an artifact and a land. That then deals 2 damage to that player for 6.
Yep, way too much for not a good effect. See, Connie, I completely agree with you. Kamigawa is an amazing set. It wasn't my first set. My first set was Mirrodin, which was directly before it. But yeah, I also agree. Kamigawa is great, and those who hate it can fuck off, I guess.
Lucky off. Tail Slash. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. So Rabid Bite in red.
At instant speed. I mean, you're going to have better creatures to do it with in green, but yeah, it's cool.
Maybe if you've got a dragon handy or a beast. Tamir Battle Rage. Target creature gains double strike until end of turn. Nice at instant speed. Also gains trample until end of turn if you control a creature with 4 or greater power.
This is an amazing card. Absolutely. Really good, actually, in prowess decks.
Oh, that prowess.
Yes, prowess is fun.
Thunderstrike. Having played like enchantment auras, I'm not so much into the until end of turns. I wanted to last.
Yes. Yeah. These sort of things cycle in and out of being good depending on what's kind of new and standard. And right now that's enchantments and long-term effects.
A torrent of fire. It's gonna do things. Oh, it's gonna do things.
I remember back when we were looking at the blue cards, there were a lot of high converted mana cost payoffs that we were discussing. And this definitely seems to be one of those payoffs. It was Scourge, this set. Scourge?
So sketchy.
Ooh,
we've got a full play set.
Ooh.
Twin Bolt. Oh my god. There's a name I've not heard of. Twin Bolt deals 2 damage divided as you choose among 1 or 2 target creatures and or players. Nice.
Certainly a good card.
It's a name I've not heard very much of late.
Urza?
Urza. I have an Urza-based land or mana source somewhere.
Very nice. Are you talking about the Tron lands?
The there's like
Urza's
3
power
bits that work
plant,
together.
Urza's...
I think
Yep,
I've got
that's
power
Tron.
plant.
Yep.
I never had all of them.
Urza's mine, Urza's power plant, and Urza's tower, I think, are the 3.
That's the one. I've got power plant. I always thought it'd be nice to have like more of that stuff, but I don't. Vandalize. Destroy artifact. Destroy land. For 5, it seems expensive.
Yes.
Too much. How about a wave of indifference?
Aw. I have this card. It's very nice. The text is very amusing.
Darius? Yeah. It's got been sneaking up on him, so just saying. I mean, it's an afternoon. Weapon surge. That is a cool bit of art. Target creature you control gets +1/+0 and gains first strike until end of turn. Overload. Yes. That's a spell for its overload cost. If you do, change its text, replacing with target with each.
Yeah. All of the Izzet cards from the Return to Ravnica block were based around this overload mechanic, and it was actually quite fun, quite fascinating. And it's interesting to see.
Pretty quickly.
Exactly, and it was very interesting to see like how the mana cost was changed between with overload, because this one is actually still quite cheap even with paying overload. But then you have cards like Electrickery, which deals 1 damage to target creature and opponent controls, and that one takes like 4 or 5 mana to get it to overload.
Take a wild guess.
I like wild guess.
4 cards for 2. No guts, no glory. That's a very toothy wall.
Wild guess is good. Obviously replaced by the objectively better Thrill of Possibility. But
yes. Wild Slash. Apparently Captain America is in trouble. Ferocious, you can gain if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, damage can't be prevented this turn. Wild Slash deals 2 damage to a target creature or player.
I think Wild Slash is used in a few Pioneer decks. It's definitely a nice little card.
Can't unsee Captain America.
No, neither can I.
Yamabushi's Flame deals 3 damage to target creature or player. If a creature dealt damage this way, would be put into graveyard, exiling it instead for 3. 3 damage for 3.
Classic.
And Yamabushi's back with a Storm.
Ooh.
That's some pretty cool art. Deals 1 damage to each creature. If a creature dealt damage this way, exile it. That's all the red cards.
Oh, that's all? It only took 2 hours and 15 minutes to get through them all.
We did speed through it a few times.
Yes.
We did hit the gas a few times.
Yeah.
For everyone on stream, we had this and this and this.
I believe the one that we realized that I was missing was about Cyclops.
Yeah. I'm not going through them all. I'm just gonna show some art. We like these people.
Yes, we do.
Lovely art. For a free. Cal.
Yes?
Where can we find you on the internet?
I can be found lurking in dark corners and lost in the shadows. But occasionally, if you follow me on twitch.tv/KeladryJane, that is KeladryJane, you can see me when I stream occasionally, when my cat hasn't bitten through my microphone cable, as she has done several times. You can also find me on the Stone Monkey Radio Discord. I am quite frequently, not necessarily active, but lurking. And that's about it on where you can find me on the interwebs. Where can we find you, Almighty
Me,
Janiac?
I'm Maniac Janiac on Twitter and YouTube. I'm here on twitch.tv/Janiac. I'm on Stoned Monkey Radio on. You can look on SoundCloud. Probably find YouTube with Stone Monkey Radio. Stone Monkey Radio on Patreon, and I have to remember all the other things before the lights go out because it's light out time. I think that's everything. Very much appreciate everyone. And Cal has put a link in the chat for your thing. That's awesome. Oh my god. I nearly clicked on somebody else's Twitch that was recommended to me, but they're playing a Leisure Suit Larry game, so that was never really going to be my thing.
No.
Bad Twitch, no biscuit. Thank you very much for
Mm-hmm.
joining us. See you again sometime. Bye-bye.
Bye.